and good afternoon. This is Jim Shields with the Leader Next Door podcast, and I am here with an old friend, someone who I haven't seen in a long time. And when I say old friend, I wasn't even great friends with him before, but I've always felt like this person would have my back, and we kind of grew up in the same circle. And this guy is Nick Liberato. Welcome to the podcast, Nick.
Thank you for having me, Jim. Very excited.
Yeah, so Nick, oh man, there's so many questions to ask. I know that we'll never get through all of this today because Nick also just sidetracked me when I got here and put all this delicious food in front of my face, things I've never even seen before, whitefish, a pastrami sandwich. I felt like a moron just coming in here, but I just shoved my face with like grease running down my hands, and like I'm happy now. Thank you, Nick. One of the reasons that Nick has kind of been on my list to interview for a long time is he's had a tremendous amount of success as a chef and in the restaurant industry. I don't know if I'd be here today if I didn't go to high school with Nick, though, and I have a few mutual friends. So I'm very, very appreciative that he was able to take some time out for me. So thanks again for that.
Anything for good Pennsbury alumni.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Go Falcons.
Go Falcons.
So, Nick, I kind of want to, there's a lot to talk about, but I feel like I've read some stuff on you and watched some of your stuff. And I feel like if someone knows you, they do know a lot about that already. And we'll get into some of that for sure in some of your projects. But I kind of want to hit the rewind button for a minute and go back to Hood Boulevard in beautiful Fairless Hills, Pennsylvania, circa 95, maybe 96.
Great year.
Great year.
The music was amazing.
The music was amazing. What music comes to mind, Nick, when you think of the year?
Oh my God! We had like Gwen Stefani and Sublime and Biggie Smalls, and I mean that really good '90s rap scene.
Yeah. That
I know we experienced at a lot of parties at the Alvino's house.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, man. I mean, that was a really magical time, and also a big transition, I think, for a lot of us, because we were all getting ready to start our real lives, going off to college, and it was a nervous one for me. I enjoyed school. There were certainly some subjects I excelled in much more than others, but I say pretty truthfully, I kind of made it out at the skin of my teeth. And I wanted to I was really searching for what I wanted, what I really wanted to do in my life. I felt like I was kind of spinning my wheels around here because I love the area, and we're also talking, 25 plus years ago, where, I had a lot of pressure on myself as far as what was I going to be? What was I going to do? I was comparing myself to like friends that were going to Ivy League schools.
Oh, my goodness.
And my sister was already in New York City at FIT. And for me, I was just constantly just so worried about that next step in life. And something that I was always great with was talking with people.
Absolutely.
Being really feel good and positive in conversations. Earlier in life, my mom had got me involved with a lot of commercials with like American Express and JCPenney ads. So I kind of had taken dance class, so I had that almost theatrical, little bit of a background.
Involved in the arts a little bit?
Involved in the arts, for sure. I loved to skateboard, snowboard, surf. But I really couldn't put my finger on the pulse of what was actually going to pay the bills, really.
Yeah.
So,
were you thinking about that early in high school, paying the bills?
I was nervous.
Yeah.
I was legitimately nervous because I was living at my parents' house in Yardley, and I wasn't getting into the bigger schools. I ended up, as Bucks County Community College initially. But before I did that, literally just as we graduated, I couldn't have been a week out of high school in '96, and I was already on a plane to California.
So that I do want to get to in just a moment, but I want to paint the picture of like people see you now and like, wow, he's so nice, and he's so accomplished, and he knows all this stuff about food, and I'm a high school teacher, and I see kids that have idols, and they look up to people and they say, man, that's what I want to do. But it's like, it's not always such a linear path. Like you said, like you're sitting there walking around high school, and I talk to so many kids that are in this like rat race of it. There's competition, and now they have with Instagram, everyone wears college sweatshirts, and it's like, oh, Villanova, USC, and then you have your other schools that people might be proud of. But like you said, you're very successful right now. And when you look back at it, although you had that anxiety about not getting into some of those schools, you ended up at Bucks County Community College. Mm-hmm. You got to where you are now. So, I mean, it can happen. I want to talk to you in a little bit about like what makes it happen. Like I know you have a lot of passion, and I know there's perseverance probably in there. But before we jump to that, I just want to tell you the picture that I have of you in high school. So since we went to high school together, we weren't in any classes. Nick says that he only got into Bucks County Community College, but he's probably being modest. You probably were in none of my classes because I was in a little bit of probably lower classes. I'm not sure. Maybe we had some electives together. But the picture that I always have, even though I didn't really hang out with you, is someone similar to what you described. Someone who was happy-go-lucky. Yeah. Someone who was a friend to many different types of people. Yeah. Someone who was an extrovert for sure. Me being an introvert and kind of like shy, and to myself, I would always look at you and your friends and think like, man, those guys are having fun. And like, I didn't know how to have that yet. I don't know if I was comfortable enough with myself to be that free. Yeah. And I saw you guys and I was like, those guys are nice guys and they're free. And what was that? Like, how did you and your friend group in high school, like where did that come from?
You know, I think I had always been an outgoing person. I think a lot of that, what my mom had got me involved with as a kid, getting in front of the camera, into certain like modeling things as I was younger. It got me that much more active and communicating with folks. I was definitely raised in a great household where I wanted to, I was raised to always treat everyone great, accept everyone, make people feel good, that I had a very good upbringing with that to make sure that I was always a good person, a gentleman. But, I think I love life, and I think I've tried to wring out as much of it as I possibly can. I don't take a day for granted. I live in the present. I appreciate the past. I have no regrets, and I'm always looking forward to the future. Yeah. And I felt like I was in that zone then, and I had gravitated to a lot of people that were into music. Yeah. I was really into listening to the Grateful Dead and going to some cool concerts with a lot of friends, and
kind of remember that
Lollapaloozas, and the skateboarding and the snowboarding and the surfing kept me very active. Yeah. And, being in school, I just generally really enjoyed communicating with people and getting to know who they are and building those relationships and really just trying to figure out, what I was great in, and I loved science and I loved social studies. There was other subjects I didn't excel as great in. I loved photography. Yeah.
Mr. Lefferts? Is that who you had?
No, it was Mr. Oh God, it'll come to me.
It's okay.
It'll come to me. But I loved photography and I loved film. Yeah. And when I ended up going to Bucks County Community College, I ended up studying film and business. Okay. Which I think got my wheels turning on a few things of kind of what was my next step. But it was just it was a very natural thing for me to be an extrovert because, and it's actually the opposite of what a chef actually is. Really? I can't speak for all of them, but a lot of them are introverts where they like, I know I have many relationships with chefs that like to stay in the kitchen. Yeah. Don't communicate as much, or just to the folks that are on the line or in that restaurant family. And it's really just a head down kind of thing. And you're so committed to your craft. And there's tons of sacrifice to come along with it, which I think even makes you that much more of an extrovert. But I was always that chef in the kitchen in my younger years that was looking out into the dining room at the chef in the white coat, mm-hmm. talking to the folks out in the dining room, being praised for the food and the experience. And I remember very early on looking at that and going, I'm going to be that guy.
Wow. Yeah. That's amazing. Well, going back, you said that you talked about like your parents. Did you grow up with your mom and dad?
Yep. Yeah. Both my parents are from South Philly.
Oh, cool.
I grew up in an Italian family. Okay. So, yeah, I guess if we're getting a little bit more to the roots, actually, I grew up in a very loud, active household with a large extended family where, again, every night at my house was like a holiday dinner at someone else's.
Wow.
I mean, you'd walk in my house on a Sunday, the Sinatra's pumping, there's wine out, braciola's being made, fresh pasta, sausage, braciole, I mean, you name it, something was happening. Okay. And we were communicating through food. We were all getting our hands in with it, and then ultimately everyone was coming over to enjoy that.
Yeah.
So some of my first experiences, and I should say inspirations, was watching my grandmother, my grandmom Jojo, who's Sicilian, and my dad cooking, and they actually lived in Doylestown.
Yeah.
So like I would go into their garden, their backyard, and they had peppers and they had tomatoes, and we're always preparing fresh meals. And then my other grandparents had 3 stands on the Italian market in South Philadelphia.
Oh, wow.
So I would work there at a very young age,
Okay.
in the 80s, bagging fruits and vegetables, understanding money, definitely getting a crash course in a whole new vocabulary as well as life.
Wow.
We would pack the car up after a long weekend, and then we would head to Atlantic City, where my grandpa gambled quite a bit. And
awesome.
I would end up being given comps that he would get from the pit boss. I remember his name was Joey Sarnice. And
Wow.
here I am, a young kid with these like $100 comps, and my grandpa just sending me upstairs to eat. But I realized this later in life, that actually those experiences I was having on my own, eating coq au vin and French onion soup and brandade and different things like that in a brasserie, were my early education of a little bit more elevated cuisine, because
Yeah.
I was raised more or less on peasant food. When you're talking about Italian food or
Okay.
even Spanish or French, the simplicity of those different types of cuisines, I'd say most, you can really break it down pretty simple, where it's fairly basic cooking, or
Yeah.
it's very, I think, complicating to the normal person.
Yeah.
But when you start to get into it, it's simple proteins and dairy and vegetables, and
Yeah.
how you're bringing them together, and the different ingredients that do that, and the different techniques.
Yeah, I watch a lot of the different shows. Well, I used to anyway, and like I really typically get lost somehow. Similar how I just got lost in what you said at some point after protein. Like I know what protein is, but I know there's so many complexies, and it seems like at an
Fish,
early age,
chicken, yeah. It's yeah, and I mean, I grew up in Yardley. I think I was very fortunate that I was raised in the family that I was raised in, and that food was an enormous thing in my house.
Yeah.
It was a big focus, but we also would dine in Philadelphia quite a bit,
Yeah.
or down in the beach communities in Atlantic City at my early years, and then go up to New York City for Broadway plays and going out to dinners in New York City.
Wow.
So that was like
great memories. That's awesome.
early on, and and my international travels didn't start until I was like 18 years old.
Yeah.
I think my dad really wanted to wait until I could appreciate it.
Yeah, I understand that.
And I took my first trip to Italy with the family, and that was a game changer for me.
Yeah.
In like 2019, it's like my last trip before I left this area.
Before you got out.
Yeah.
Well, so you have this history of like, I just love the picture that I have in my head of you down at the, the market down in South Philadelphia bagging stuff, and then getting the comps in Atlantic City, and like these dinners that you had at your house. And I feel like a lot of your, maybe of you being like an extrovert and being able to communicate so openly with folks, you were like trained to be that your whole life. But you said something earlier that your parents, always taught you to be kind and respectful, and something like that. But the question I have for you is, what did they do specifically to do that outside of modeling it? Because that's a tricky thing. It's like not, sometimes the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, but like, do you remember, what do you remember from them?
Well, my mom and dad are total opposites.
Okay.
My dad grew up in Philadelphia, very kind of like your West Side Story kind of scene, if you can paint that picture for yourself. And there was like the Italian section and the Irish. And it was old school in Philadelphia. He would do a cappella. And my mom would work on 9th Street with her family. She was a nice, like, Catholic girl. And, they met when they were 16 and had a relationship for a little bit. And then my dad was quickly off at age 18, off to Vietnam.
Wow.
And came back after like 2 years. I believe he had re-enlisted. And
Wow.
But the values, my dad was way harder on me growing up. He was very accomplished, went to Drexel for architecture. My mom has been a florist at McCafferty's in Yardley for almost 35 years.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's amazing.
So And my mom's a sweetheart. She's
Yeah.
like Mother Teresa. And my father, I think we butted heads quite a bit because he was constantly pushing me to be better, to do better. And I don't want to say that in like a demeaning manner. I just meant like he was concerned about me because I was constantly chasing the next hurricane that was hitting the Jersey Shore or the next tour of Grateful Dead coming through and skateboarding. And it was tough for me to just get, nailed down. I guess this was before, OCD or
ADHD or whatever.
Something was a thing. Maybe I would have been
maybe you had it, maybe you didn't.
I don't know, but what I do know is that there were parts of where my father had questioned my passion and my direction, where my mother was always like, Nikki, you shoot for the stars. You're going to be able to do anything you possibly want. And my dad did an amazing job raising me as like a gentleman and understanding not to take some things to people, certainly toughening me up at an early age. But for the most part, I lean on my mother a little bit more, just being, just a very kind, free thinker, and be nice to everyone, never sink a ship. You're only as good as your last day, kind of thing. Like, make sure you create the best impression, dress nice, So that was like constantly in it. But they were big supporters of mine, and I'd also have to say they gave me a huge amount of freedom. Yeah, probably more than my sister had growing up. But I was a tough one to nail down. Yeah. It's like I was always going somewhere,
Grateful
doing
Dead
something.
concerts, skateboarding. Your dad probably got scared.
Yeah, I broke tons of bones. I was chasing snowstorms up in the Poconos, Vermont, Catskills. Eventually started going out west. Surfing was probably my main thing. And getting out there and surfing the hurricane swells, the tropical storms, because that was like my early on. I had discovered my like free medicine, my escape, my free therapy, it was the salt water, the ocean, that beach, that culture for me has been something that I had always chased because I felt so comfortable there, and it was a place where I could go and leave there with a good peace of mind and be more collected and centered.
Now I know, so pretty much right from high school you sort of pieced out and went to the West Coast. I mean, I did want to talk to you specifically about the surfing thing, because I know just from looking at your social media and talking to our mutual friend Bobby, I know that's a big part of your life. And I also, just jumping ahead real quick, like with the ocean, like I've had this experience as well with the ocean, not like you, but I also have it, and I appreciate Mother Nature for many things, probably like you do. And it's like a natural high at some points, whether it's, sometimes more than others. But I know the ocean is something that I've always felt, even though I can't surf too well, I've done it a few times. It's almost like plugging myself into an outlet, and it does something like that for me, and is also like a form of meditation. Like, is the ocean still like that for you, or what, how would you describe it? Like, what does it do for you? I know it's a big thing.
It rejuvenates me. It re-energizes me. It clears my mind. It helps me compartmentalize a lot of things that are stressful within the hospitality business, being a father, being a husband, just all the pressure that I put on myself, kind of being a face of a brand and doing a lot of things. It's the only moment I have for myself, because surfing is, and I worked as a surf instructor for years in LA, we can get to that, but like it was, it came very easy to me, and it gave me a lot of joy, and it was also filled that adrenaline for me because I'm a little bit of, I love to go fast and down a hill and all big jumps and gradually moved on to bigger, faster waves, and it was a challenging thing that I knew I could accomplish, and being connected, kind of like you said, like to Mother Nature, where you're in this unpredictable situation that is all you. It's just you on that board. And it's just you with everything else that's underneath of you. And then there's other surfers, and there's getting waves. And it's like, it's almost, it throws a little bit of that gladiator in there, and like understanding how quickly you have to paddle and where to position yourself, and, and just being smart about it. I've gotten countless stitches surfing and broken bones snowboarding and skateboarding, but it's something that I constantly keep going back to, because It makes me so happy, but more than anything, it's better for anyone else that's around me in the workplace, because they'll know when I'm surfing that, that I'm coming in, and it's like I'm like completely refreshed, and I've kind of recentered myself, and we are I'm able to go into whatever I'm doing next with a lot clearer mind.
Oh my gosh.
A little bit cooler and cool, calm, and collected.
It's funny because people listening, like everybody, I hope everybody, maybe not everyone does, but I hope a lot of people like have their thing, And I have my thing that clears my head, and it's mountain biking right now, and that's something I do four or 5 times a week, whatever. But I'm picturing it a lot like surfing, and I want to ask you this: when you're out on the surfboard, or even like on the slopes, and you can clear your head, you can be by yourself, do you find yourself like getting thoughts that you wouldn't get other times? Because that's all I've been doing lately is like these great ideas come up. Maybe they're great ideas, maybe they're not, but like I get back to my car and I'm like, I have to put this in notes or something. It's just...
I'm super connected to nature. I mean, it doesn't necessarily always happen in the ocean. It's one of my favorite places. I love to hike as well, and just get out in the nature. But yes, there's a lot of creativity and things that have come together for me on a board. I've created many menus, built certain dishes in my mind. Yeah. My restaurants in California are right on the beach. So I was able to keep my surfboards on the roof there, and I would come in the morning and paddle out front, and I'd be thinking about my special for the day or for the next day. And I would just come in completely refreshed and like, okay, I thought about it. I got some colors in my mind. I've got somewhat of the elevation on the plate and how we're going to do it, because I was able to think a little bit cool, calm, and collected while I'm sitting out there, because there is some lag time. When you're waiting for a wave, or you're in between tides, or maybe the swell's filling in, or whatever it is. But it's always been a good way of me. It's definitely been an outlet to be able to create more.
Yeah. Well, we're sort of like talking about these great things that Mother Nature provides. That's awesome. That's one aspect of your life. But we kind of want to follow sort of a timeline. Like, people that know you may have watched Restaurants on the Edge, season 1 or 2 on Netflix, which we will definitely talk about. You've been on Bar Rescue, which is kind of what, when I first saw you on there, I was like, what? I think I called Bobby. I was like, is that Nick that we went to? He's like, yeah, you didn't know that? I'm like, what do you mean I didn't know that? Why didn't you tell me that? So, I mean, I was like, whoa. I mean, but you've been doing that for a while now, and you're sort of like, you're the man that's doing that now. But like, I want to go back to freaking you getting out of high school and saying, I'm going to California, man. I'm going to go catch some waves. I'm going to just follow something that is drawing me there. And like, I want to hear about that, because I talk to a lot of kids in high school, and most of them may have a slight idea what they want to do, but they're definitely, a lot of them are more concerned with grades. And I'm like, look, think about your passions, think about like your energy, think about how you treat others. A lot of the things that you had going for you in high school. But how did this whole West Coast thing come up, and what did it do for you? Tell me about that.
Oh, my room in Yardley, I'm a big believer of vision boards.
Yeah.
And
me too.
Manifestation and things like that. I think before I even knew really what it was, and I had posters all over my room of places in California, and ultimately every day that night I would go to bed, I would look at them, and every morning I'd wake up, I'd see them as well.
What were they? Do you remember?
Oh man, I had pictures, different maps of different islands and different parts around the world and parts of California. And when I tell you this, every one of them came true.
Wow. Every
part of all those posters, and even my biggest poster was of this pro surfer, this guy Strider Wasilewski. He used to surf for Quicksilver, but he ended up becoming a really good friend of mine. And like randomly, all these guys that I had looked up to in the surf and skate world, and even some snow, I'd end up building relationships with later in life. But I went out there just as we finished high school in '96, and it was really just, it's kind of just like, I need to get out of here. I need to see what it's all about. I need to see if this is for me. And I got out there, and I was living in San Bernardino.
Did you move out there like, I'm going to move out here, or am I going out for 2 weeks kind of thing?
No, I went out there to like, I'm gonna stay out there.
And you're 18?
I was 18, right out of high school, and I beat my postcard home. I lasted about 6 months because I didn't nail down a full steady gig, and I wasn't I didn't have a car out there, and I wasn't together as I probably should have been initially getting out there.
Okay.
So, and I was bouncing between Laguna Niguel and San Bernardino.
Okay.
And getting to know Los Angeles and Southern California and the northern part of Baja, and I was like, oh my God, I'm in love with this place. But I realized pretty quickly that the money was running out.
Yeah.
And that I needed to do this a little bit differently. I know I needed a car. I know I needed a little bit more direction as far as what I was going to do.
Yeah.
Even though I had been cooking here, I was working for McCafferty's doing their prepared foods, and I had worked at a small Italian restaurant called Luigi's, which was in the giant shopping center in Yardley.
I remember that.
But yeah, I quickly turned around. Within 6 months, I came back, and that's when I started going to Bucks County Community College, where I studied business and film, and went about a year and a half there, where I ended up moving back out in like 99.
Mm-hmm.
And that was when I had my car, I had saved up money, I was working, and I was like, I'm doing this right, and I'm not coming back.
Okay.
And that's exactly what I did.
Wow. And
Now-
we're like, you're not coming back, but when you went out, did you
Yeah.
have a spot to work already, or were you just like, I'm finding a spot once
I told
get
my
there?
aunt and uncle I'm going to live with them for a month, and
Okay.
after that they can kick me out if I don't get a job and get everything I'm doing. And that's more or less exactly what I did.
Okay.
So I had moved out, and I actually moved out with a girlfriend at the time. That didn't work out as planned. We were
happens.
young, and we ended up going our own directions. But with that, I then had to carry rent myself. And it was really important for me to not come home with my tail between my legs again.
Yeah.
And that was probably one of the most challenging times in my life, because I had I guess it was an ego, and
Yeah.
it was, and I felt like I had to prove my father
I was thinking about that as you
to
were
know
just...
that I can do this on my own. And to do that, I ended up having to, I remember getting my car and setting up at Sunset and the PCH, and I slept in my car for 3 months. And it was one of the toughest things I ever had to do. And this was all while working at a surf shop in Santa Monica called ZJ Boarding House, which ended up being just an amazing place that opened up so many doors for me. I was starting my catering business called Caladelphia, which I was doing private parties all throughout Malibu, Bel Air, Beverly Hills. I was young in my career, so it's funny. I look back on some of the food I was doing then, and it's like looking at the clothes you wore during that time, and it's like completely different style, and so early in my career, and there was so much evolution that was about to happen. But I remember, back hurting or waking up, and I would race into work, and I'd take a shower there, and I would just make sure that no one knew that I didn't have a place to stay.
Yeah.
And I started saving up money, and until I got it to the point where I was crashing on a buddy's couch, and then eventually got a roommate, and finally got myself on my feet myself. And it was there where I knew how committed I was to food and building my career as a chef, because I had been constantly going throughout the farmers markets. I had already built up a lot of inspiration. I believe Anthony Bourdain had just hit the scene right around that time. I had caught on him very early on in his career, and he was a big inspiration to me early on. Wow. And I was like, wow. And I was also working with chefs that had already been traveling the world and had restaurants, and I had already kind of started painting that picture of what I want in my life. I want to be a chef that travels the world, that's able to create concepts, works on TV. I had that pretty early in my head. It's like the late 90s. And then, I started getting on my feet, and I started connecting with Michelin star restaurants and some great chefs in the early 2000s. And, getting back to like why I lived in my car was because, and if I'm talking to any kids or people out there, I think the worst thing you could ever do in your life is be enabled. Enabled. And meaning, like, if you can't do it, listen, everyone's got to ask for help, I guess, at certain points in their life, and that's fine. But for me, and I think it's more of possibly a chef mentality, it was a little bit more military kind of way of being brought up through
From
my
your
dad.
dad,
But it was like, you got to be better than the day before. You've got to, if you can't do this, no one's going to do it for you. You don't have your college degree, and you got to work and be a self-made man, and you need to do this from the ground up. And I didn't want any shortcuts in order to get there, because then I wouldn't understand initially how to maintain it, and I would always be relying on someone to help me as that thing. So that always kept me pushing harder to be able to take care of myself and my life and the career I was trying to build at that particular time.
Yeah, it just seems like you have this, like, I don't want to say perfect storm, but like the way that you went about things, like even from you being raised by your mom being super loving and your dad being loving but a little bit more strict, it kind of set you up with a good like core.
Yeah.
And then you got out there, it didn't work out. You went right back. You weren't coming back with your tail between your legs and you're like, I'm going to fight this thing out.
Yeah.
And you had this skill and things started to sort of happen for you because, you had a great attitude, you were smart, you were getting skilled. But what was the first moment, in your young career where you were like, shit, like, I think like I just turned a corner, or I think like I just made that next step? Because look, if you had, I don't know much about Philadelphia, but like if that's something that you created, a lot of people create things, right?
Yep.
And I know that eventually did well, but like at first nothing does well, right? I mean,
no.
So how did that, what was like the first moment where you're like, shit, man, like this is work. This is going to happen. Like, I know you'll say you always were like that, even sleeping in your car and all that stuff.
This is a great story. So the year was 2004. And I was working in the surf shop at the time, while I was also working part-time between a restaurant called Melisse, which was a Michelin star restaurant in Santa Monica, and another spot called Giraffe.
Okay.
Both chefs, very accomplished chefs, great guys, very tough. Mm-hmm. I mean, they beat the crap out of me, like mentally and in a kitchen, and understanding what the standards were and how hard I needed to push myself. There was many nights I would go home crying my eyes out.
Wow.
And just burned and cut and just like, maybe this isn't for me. I remember one night I was lifting up to grab some plates, and I broke a bunch of plates right on the stovetop while like however many dinners were being made. And I remember, and this was a time in the hospitality business where things were going on that would never get away with today. I mean, between the volume you're screaming at someone, physically like throwing them up against a wall, and demeaning and belittling to the highest that you could possibly imagine.
Very old school type.
Very old school type. And, that later pushed me even more after, being raised pretty hard and in both kitchens and at home, to lead with passion. Mm-hmm. But there was the moment I was working in a surf shop, and I worked there part-time because I was giving surf lessons.
Okay.
I was a single guy.
That's the life,
I was giving surf lessons to girls from all around the world, cool people. I was making great money. I mean, it was all
living your dream.
I was living my dream. I mean, it was just phenomenal.
The posters are coming true.
And I remember this gentleman came into the surf shop, and I was like immediately like attracted to him. Like I had to get to know this guy.
Yeah,
like we just connected. How are you? What's your name? And he said, my name's David Myers. Mm-hmm. I was like, David, nice to meet you. And we start talking about surfboards, and he's like, you seem like a really cool guy, man. What is this? What you got going? You work in surf shop in the surf industry? I was like, no, actually, I'm a chef. And he's like, oh, really? He's like, I'm also in the hospitality business. I was like, great. I was like, you know what? Here's my card. I'm always looking for people to help me at my private parties and things like that. He ended up leaving, came back a couple weeks later, and we reconnected. I was like, oh, here's this guy again.
Yeah.
And he goes, you've been on my mind. I really liked your energy. And I think you're a really cool guy, and I could use some of your energy at my spot. And I was like,
That's
oh,
amazing.
cool. I was like, listen, if there's any parties you have, please let me know. He's like, cool, well, I'll tell you what. And I remember he had a BlackBerry at the time. I remember this.
Now we know what year it was. 2004, you said.
Yeah,
right?
So he was like writing out an address, and he goes, call Kalia, she's my assistant. And immediately I'm like, wow, all of a sudden this guy has an assistant.
Yeah.
And I called her, and she gave me an address to go to. So I ended up going out to West Hollywood. It was between Melrose and Beverly on La Cienega, to a little restaurant called Sona, Sona.
Okay.
And it was a Michelin star restaurant And David Myers is actually Chef David Myers, who is the owner and executive chef.
Oh.
And I was like, wow, he didn't really tell me that.
Yeah.
So I walked
Information that
into the
would've been
back
helpful.
kitchen, and I remember walking into that back kitchen, and at that moment I understood how far behind I was with my cooking and the things and what I had been doing before.
Just as soon as you walked in, I mean,
The minute I walked in and looking at certain equipment and
Yeah.
seeing deliveries coming through and reading the menu and not knowing what certain things were, and I was like, wow. And that place, Melise, certainly was right on the same level of that, but this
Sure.
place was on a whole other level.
okay.
And I remember working for a few hours on garde manger, which was essentially like cold apps, and helping getting our mise en place ready for the night. And the word mise en place means everything in its place.
Okay.
Meaning you can't execute anything in life unless you have things that you can properly be able to grab from in order to execute what you ultimately need to do. Meaning like
Wow.
if your room is a mess at your
Yeah.
house, you're always going to be leaving your house with a cluttered mind. So you need to make sure that now I have 3 kids, and I can't even tell you what my house looks like. But
I also have 3 kids,
I
and
know.
it's not good. It's-
But yeah, so I was like immediately intrigued, intimidated, excited, every emotion you could possibly think of.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is where I need to be. This is what I need to do.
you knew it.
I knew it. And he walks in, gives me a
That's
pat on the shoulder. Chef, how are you? A little condescending.
You're like, ugh.
Little condescending, and I just like, oh, hey, chef, how are you? I had no idea. You didn't tell me. He goes, Nick, I'm just great. Happy to have you here. Great energy, man. Let's have a good service tonight. And immediately went in this night, and I got my butt kicked and just, but immediately connected with some parts of the team. You know, some guys rode me certainly much harder than others.
Yeah, sure.
And I was like, this is it. This is it. So I said to David, oh, great, man. So where can I start? He goes, well, unfortunately, I'm fully staffed. I don't have a job for you. I said, okay. Can I come back tomorrow? He goes, absolutely.
Yeah.
I continued that for at least 3 to 4 nights a week on top of everything else that I was doing. I was doing like private parties on
Yeah.
the weekends or random times, and I had the surf lessons in the surf shop, and I worked for free. I didn't think about anything, and I did it completely on my own. You know, a lot with today, people are entitled and they think
Absolutely.
everything is owed to them so quickly, and they see that and they're like, I want that, I need to get that.
Yes.
And again, it comes back to being enabled. And so he had said something to me during that time, and he had said, you know, Nick, you don't want to, you know, I think I had talked to him again about trying to get a job. He goes, listen, Nick, don't worry about the money. If you do everything right, the money's going to follow. And it like stuck in my head all these years. And I remember that, and I had stuck it out for a couple months.
Yeah.
Could have been 3 or 4 months, until one night I was in that kitchen, hard Saturday night, and the general manager came into the kitchen and he said, step outside. He asked me to go in the back of the restaurant.
Yeah.
He said, take your shirt off. I was like, kind of job is this?
What's going on here?
What's going on here? And he had a pressed white shirt that had just been dry cleaned that he
Wow.
had me put on, escorted me to the front of the restaurant, and the hostess, Mr. Liberato, so happy to have you. Follow me this way. Immediately sit down, glass of champagne, and I was served 17 courses, all paired with wine. These guys got me completely banged up that night.
Oh my gosh.
And on the last course, Chef David just appears, sitting
It's
in
like
front of me.
magic out of a cloud or something.
Literally, the guy just levitated into the chair, like just appeared. It was definitely the drinks and the cocktails, but he goes, you know, your determination, your passion, your drive is something that you can never be taught. It's earned. He goes, and you did that, and I'm offering you a job. And I was like, wow, really? And it wasn't making a lot
Yeah.
of money by any means. I think I was making somewhere around $7.50 an hour.
Yeah.
And I then started transitioning my life at 2004 to be full board, doing nothing but cooking on the line,
Wow.
and taking my career and my knowledge to the next level from that moment forward. And it went a couple different directions through those years, because again, you can only go so many years getting paid $7.50 an hour,
Sure.
even during that time.
Sure.
So I was still running Philadelphia on the side, and that actually started to grow. And a lot of the people I had listened to as a kid, or watched on TV, I ended up making the connections through the surf shop initially to get in this one neighborhood called Point Doom in Malibu.
Okay.
And it was a huge part of my life and doing private parties, because I started cooking for just like all kinds of like unbelievable people and my wife was here. She'd be like, "What's that on the floor?" She'd be like, "Another name you dropped." So I don't want to drop names, but I'm happy to share them with you because I know people would want to hear.
Yeah, absolutely. I would like to hear them because I don't know.
But, you know, Barbara Streisand.
Wow.
And Cher and the Beastie Boys, the Chili Peppers.
Jeez.
Beck, Tom Hanks, Will Smith. And one of the coolest parties I ever did, like a private party, I was cooking at Tom Hanks' house, and he had Paul McCartney was the main guy that they were honoring for the dinner, and you know, just did this beautiful meal, and he was a vegan, and there was all kinds of people at this party, from Elvis Costello to Sting to you know, just everyone that was there, and it was just like at that night when I had left there, you know, they played music, and it was just like another world, and I was like, wow, I just cooked for the Beatles. I was like, that's like a wild thing. That's not normal. But this world of, you know, I can go back to my dad and like him seeing me take surf trips very early on when I first got out to California. I was going throughout Central America, South America, Australia, you know, the Polynesia, to surf. You know, every time I was going on these surf trips, I was also the guy after that, the day I was going in the kitchen at these places and cooking with people.
That's awesome.
Whether it was doing a pig roast or just learning some local cuisine and getting inspired, getting this cultural experience.
Right.
And I think for me, as I didn't get that big college degree, I definitely got a master's in world travel and being cultured. Yeah. And I think that's one of the most healthiest, best educations you can ever get or give to your child in life, because, and I know I'm going to have like a complete double standard with that when my daughter's like, hey, I'm going to
ask you about that.
I'm going to go to Europe. I'm going to be like, oh, really?
Oh, really? You're not going to go to...
Oh, you can't go by yourself. But without that, you know, a lot of the things that I've done in my life and things that I've been inspired on would have been nothing if I didn't get a lot of those travels in and probably spend money that I shouldn't have spent. But I went into it understanding that was my education.
I think that's a great, like, that was an awesome story, by the way, of how, like, you kind of answered that question in that story, and that you finally had that moment when you got that shirt, like, man, this is, you know, through that process. But the one thing that stuck out to me, Nick, is like, when you were in that shop, right? Yeah. And he came in and you were just you. Yeah. And he felt your energy, which, man, I can't tell you enough. Like, that's something that I try to talk to students about. Like, be positive, be nice. Like, it matters maybe more than anything else sometimes. And I really like, that's what I was thinking when you said that. I'm like, man, this is just another story of where it matters.
Networking for me was everything, and making those connections and understanding that you only had one shot to make a first impression. And for me, there was nothing stopping me for what I wanted, because I knew that I was the only one that could do it for myself. And there was no stopping me from 5 o'clock in the morning to 12 o'clock at night. And right around that 2003 zone was when I started writing ideas for different shows. Okay. And I started getting really interested, saying, well, I'm committing a lot to cooking, but I've got this, like, I remember I did, like, there was that car called the Honda Element. I was like their poster boy for it. Really? Yeah, if you look at like early like catalogs or whatever, but...
Oh, I'll be looking it up.
But that was, when I did that, I was like, and I had also done, I had a part in a movie with Beyonce. It was shot on Melrose back in the day. It was, I had a very small... she like walked past me on it, but anyway, I was starting to try to get back into things. Yeah. Because I enjoyed, entertainment and that exposure, and I just loved cameras, and I loved being on camera, and I loved shooting things. I mean, I have probably more photo albums than most. I mean, in high school, I was with the video camera. I was taking pictures. I have so many photo albums, but
Yeah.
it was just instilled in me. I just really enjoyed capturing those moments and them. And, with my dad watching like Yang King Cook or, any of these early chefs on TV, Emeril, I was like, wow, well, you know what? Maybe I can make these two worlds meet somewhere on the path. Maybe I can figure out a way, if I can create my own show. How hard can that be?
Yeah.
Well, little did I know I wouldn't sell my own show until 2018. But I worked on a number of shows before that happened.
Yeah.
But again, I never gave up.
Never gave up, and it seemed like you had this vision that you came up with. And what advice? I mean, we didn't really talk about what you've done. We've mentioned it briefly, but what advice would you give to younger people now? I'm not saying, I guess, any age.
Yeah.
Like if you have, you followed this vision and you made it happen. You're the kind of person that has good energy. You make things happen. How do you encourage others? How are you going to encourage your daughters to make things happen and not just sort of like say, I want to do this or I'm going to...
Yeah.
It's
clearly it's, you have to believe in yourself.
Okay.
I think one of the more unhealthy things I've done in my life is have this war in my head with how hard I push myself, which is...
And you think that's unhealthy?
I think for some, I don't think a lot can handle it.
Yeah.
I think just for the communication I've had between my wife and I, and becoming a father, and understanding how hard to push certain individuals in a kitchen or within the workspace.
Yeah.
Certain people can only take so much, and not everyone can endure ultimately what I put myself through mentally. Because remember, I was raised by a lot of these hardcore chefs that my father had pushed me much harder than what maybe the average person gets pushed. But to embrace failure, to understand that mistakes are the best thing that can happen in your life, that it's only going to create a new recipe or a new way of you doing things. You can't move forward unless you make mistakes. You want to, if you want to be it's worked out amazing for me working for all the people and the companies that I've worked for, because it was on their dollar. And I've seen a lot of mistakes made, and I've seen restaurants close, and I've seen restaurants open. I've seen careers get destroyed, just about everything you could possibly think of. So I've learned a lot and taken mental notes along the way, but you just need to show up. You need to show up and you need to do it. You don't want to procrastinate. Leave your excuses at the door. Don't be enabled. If you got to sleep on the beach for a little bit, do what you got to do. But don't let yourself get your bills taken care of or make your life easy. Only, when things are tough, that's, there's not a day I come into business where something isn't where I exactly want it. Because I'm always trying to be better than the day before. And the only way you're able to move forward and to build integrity in your business is pushing for that next level.
Right.
Because a lot of people could be very content with the same menu.
Right.
Or are you doing specials? Are you changing it 4 times a year? How often are you going to the farmers markets? What risks are you taking? How are you keeping it new for yourself and motivating? It's not fun to do the same things over and over.
So you think about that pretty actively, like for business owners that listen to the show, like, I had a great experience here today. I came in, obviously I had a unique and special experience because basically I tasted everything on the menu and it was amazing. What advice do you give to, other businesses, like whether it's a local gym or, I don't know, anything, any business, like to keep it fresh, like, that's a big piece of it, you think, for you?
You need to show up every day.
Yeah.
You don't want to rely on other people to create the experience that you ultimately want. At the end of the day, it's gonna fall on you to show up and to put that in your business. I think for restaurants and possibly, every business has different stages in where there's growth. But in the restaurants, from what I've seen and the data that's collected and how you're performing in a restaurant, it takes like 2 years to get a space kind of spot on somewhat the way you want it. But you got to be present. You got to check in. There's not a day that I don't walk in the business where I talk to my entire team before I get started with my day. and you have to hire. For the position I'm in now, I'm all about creating leaders.
Yeah.
I'm
Talk to me about that. How do you do that?
I'm all about enabling people to be the best that they possibly can be. I'm all about, in my interview process, when I'm hiring people, I'm trying to find out the things of how they are better than me. What are they doing? Are they excelling more on computers?
Yeah.
How are they going to
Social
benefit
media,
the
whatever it
social
is.
media?
Sure.
Maybe it's a part of the kitchen or just how they're going about something. I'll find something in everyone of where they're excelling in a different way of maybe I would. Because the way I saw a picture once and it really resonated with me. And there's two of them, and I'll talk about them right off the bat. One, it was a big pack of wolves walking through the forest. And I
think I saw this, but keep
the
going.
leader, the pack was built up with some strong guys in the front who were kind of leading the pack.
Yeah.
And in the middle was kind of some weaker individuals that the team is working together to carry and to make better, or to at least, protect and take care of.
Sure.
And the leader is all the way in the back.
Yeah. I saw that on Facebook or something.
You can see the whole picture and be anywhere you possibly need to be, but I've never been like the camera hog or the person that's got to be here or heard this or that. But it's like now I really want to, I'm so focused on creating other people's paths, and I'm still developing mine, and I'm still pushing harder to, mold and still develop my career into even the next phase. But while I'm doing that, I'm trying to, the hospitality business for where it's at right now has been depleted a lot. A lot of people have left to work for Amazon and get paid 25, 30 bucks an hour or whatever. And, the restaurant business is tough. The best way I could describe the restaurant business, it's like riding on the back of a blind psychotic horse into a burning barn every night, and then kind of taking it on the fly. But it's just like you need to have your composure. Okay. You need to be able to, don't come to me with a problem. Come to me with a solution. And we're going to be able because I find problems every single day.
Sure. Everyone has problems.
The minute I get into it, it's just like, why grovel in it? Why even stick in it? Why when you're in your head, you're dead kind of thing.
Yeah.
My business partner tells me that all the time. And it's just like, that's poison. And how can you actually develop yourself to manifest or bring better people around you or get that much betterment out of your business if you're in a negative space?
Yeah.
So it's really important, whatever you need to do. It's like I'll listen to some great music, and I have a beautiful drive from Newtown and Stockton every day. And
it is a beautiful drive. I just took it a couple hours ago. It's pretty amazing.
It's amazing. And I mean, I can't tell you how much more I appreciate it. I mean, my only traffic in the morning is Canadian geese or like
lots of
occasional
farms,
snow or whatever, or tractor. But, being in LA traffic for 20 something years, it'll take a toll on you.
How do you do it though, Nick? I mean, how do you stay positive? Because look, there's probably, whenever we wrap this up, you're going to go face a problem that's probably happened while we've been talking. Probably 2, at least, probably 7, at least 4 at home, and at least 3 back here in the kitchen.
Yeah.
I'll go back 25 years. You had the same smile on your face. You probably had problems back then too, but you always sort of attack something with a positive attitude. But I don't think everybody can do that.
First off,
how do they do it?
I don't want to paint a picture as if anything's ever been perfect.
I gotcha.
2014 for me was probably one of the toughest years of my life, where I think I contemplated it was probably one of my darkest times, because I think you and I had been talking about, having kids, and financials and things like that. And it's like, I hit a interesting point in my life where I had gotten depleted of a lot of money. My wife and I were trying to have kids, and
we shared that, and a lot of similarities there. We were talking about it, for sure.
And it was before that, it was just me.
Yeah.
I was I don't want to call it selfish, but I was like Peter Pan. It was just me. It was my wife when I had met her in like 2004. She moved out in 2005, and my life was drastically changed in 2014 when we had our first child. And but I also gained a superpower of how much more and harder that I need to work. But there's been a lot of blood, sweat, and tears.
Yeah.
There's been plenty of failure. There's been many nights of like, should I give everything up?
Really? It's been, you've had that?
100%.
Oh,
I mean,
gosh.
I've had chefs like, are you sure this is what you want to do with your life? Maybe you should do something else, or, just people that really break you down.
Yeah.
And
that's
haters
torture.
and, but again, make your haters your motivators.
Yeah.
I used a lot of that as fuel. People that told me I wouldn't ever make it anywhere in life. I had people in high school tell me that. I don't need to name their names, but I kept that very close to my heart.
Yeah.
And it was constant fuel. Beyond this smile and how positive I am, that was really burning inside of me, that I needed to prove to everyone that I was worthy of doing something, that I can accomplish something. Even though I didn't get the best grades in school, I was constantly fighting for that next, ultimately what I was going to be doing.
Yeah. It makes me wonder how much grades even matter. I don't know. Like I said, it's crazy. Like,
and my wife is a huge, she's the rock.
Yeah.
She is unbelievable. I don't think I would be sitting across from you right now if it wasn't for my wife. She's really helped me believe in myself through some of the toughest times. Panic attacks of before I was going on shooting Top Chef Masters or Bar Rescue, and just being in my head and just not knowing can I do this? Yeah. Doubting myself. Even as confident as I will come off to everyone, I'm not going to lie. There's been plenty of times I didn't feel as if I was strong enough. But, I did have a strong support system between my family, which I love dearly and were always rooting for me, my sister, my wife. Yeah. And now my children.
And now your children.
Which are like everything to me, and think, Daddy's the best chef in the world and this and that, and that's great,
And
but
he might be.
No. But you need to believe in yourself. You need to accept failure. You need to understand that things take time. Yeah. And you can't be putting a dollar bill and letting that's what motivating you.
I love that you were vulnerable with me today a little bit, Nick. And you talk, people that may recognize you from TV would just, they just heard that you were scared shitless sometimes, maybe before you went on set, or, if it wasn't for your wife, like, talking you off the ledge, having you take deep breaths and giving you a hug, or whatever it is. Like, I think we all have those moments of self-doubt, even when big things come up in our lives. Yeah. And look, your big thing is a Netflix show. Somebody else's big thing might be, they're playing guitar in front of a church group, whatever it is. Yeah. I mean, we have these moments where we doubt ourselves, but like, you just throw yourself into the fire and put and just go with it, and like you know who you are, and you're like, I'm gonna be that same kid I always was, that's smiling and freaking and just crush this thing, and you did, and you have been. And
there's a space that I truly believe everyone has, if they're willing to get it. They need to go deep. Yeah. Sometimes you need to hit some dark places in your life in order to find that too. Yeah. I heard an analogy once. It's like a bow and arrow being pulled back farther and farther, and we've all been at points in our lives where we are, we feel like we keep getting pulled back and back farther and farther, but at one point you're not going to go back so far. You're going to be projected as far forward as you can possibly go, because you're just going to keep ripping forward, trying to strive to get everything that you could possibly get. And for me, there's been many rock bottoms, but there's been a lot of accomplishments. Yeah, for sure. I have to owe every failure or mistake. Like, I'm glad I wouldn't change a thing. Yeah, because it made me who I am today. It made me that much stronger, that much smarter, and understand how to maneuver around certain situations. And more importantly, how to keep them consistent and how to maintain them. Yeah. Great advice that you're giving out today, Nick. I want to talk for a minute about a show that I love, Bar Rescue. Yeah. You were on it for a while. I shared earlier when I first saw you on there. I couldn't believe it. I was like, this is amazing. People from Pennsbury can make it. Yeah. Not that I was doubting, but
it was really cool to see you on that. I forget the guy's name. John, what is his name?
John Taffer.
John Tapper, that's it.
Yeah.
Always an intimidating guy. And I felt like you almost like, we were talking about some guys in high school that had our backs earlier. You
Yep.
were mentioning Rob and even Trevor and the other,
Sure.
it was like guys that if you were, if you were with them, they had your back kind of thing. And
Yeah.
and I feel like in that show, like
Yeah.
he was this like badass, and then you would kind of come in and he had your back. Like it didn't matter. Like I felt you were safe. I was like, no matter what happened.
Definitely.
I don't know if that's true, but
It is true. Yeah, John's a great guy. I mean, talk about passion and being driven and working really hard.
yeah.
Again, he gave me a great opportunity.
How did he find you?
In 2012, I had moved to Italy to work in Italy for a couple months.
Okay.
I had never gone to college.
Yeah.
I mean, I went to Bucks County Community College and I got a little bit out of it, but in every chef's career, not every chef's, but a lot of chefs spend a lot of time in France and Spain or, do their studies somewhere. And being an Italian kid, I had a lot of interest in Italy.
Okay.
So I traveled there and I spent almost 4 months traveling throughout all the different regions, sleeping in barns, knocking on the back doors of restaurants saying I'll work for free.
Wow.
For food, or if you guys will let me in your kitchen and let me cook, and on that particular trip I had started in Amsterdam because
Okay.
I was really interested in of all things, Indonesian food, actually, because they had a tea trade there, and there's great Indonesian food, and I had never been to the city before, and I was just, I wanted to kind of check out their fry production of all things, because
Yeah.
I believe that's where Burger King or McDonald's had gotten their idea of like how to make the fries and do everything that they're doing.
Oh, who knew?
But it was just a cool city. And then after that, I went to Germany for 2 weeks, and I
Okay.
went to learn how to make sausages. And I went to north of Munich in a little town in Bavaria.
Oh,
And
I've been there.
It was called Dinkelschirben.
Never been there.
Never been there. And I was at this cool little butchery, sausage spot, and it was called Lutz. And it's where I was able to go through like the slaughter process twice a week, making all the sausages. I was living in this little place not too far from there. I'd be there at 4 a.m. every morning, making bratwurst and Weisswurst and mortadella and sopressata and like all kinds of cool stuff. And and that was why I went there.
Yeah.
And then I left there, and then I landed in Naples, and I started in Sorrento, the Amalfi Coast, Positano, down into Calabria, Tropea, across into Puglia, Umbria, Tuscany, Florence, Alba, Piemonte, like all these different places all brought a different flavor, a different vibe. I had found an investor at the time.
Yeah.
And that was in 2012, and I was actually already thinking, my wife and I were thinking about moving back east.
Okay.
And I told him, in order for me to do this, I need to get inspired, and I want to get some really great ideas for this place that we're going to open. We were talking about opening it in Brooklyn at the time.
Okay.
And when I came back, his bunch of investments fell through, and he ended up saying, hey, man, I can't give you the money for this restaurant. And I was
Yeah.
like, well, I just got the trip of my life.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
And I ended up having this great truffle connection, and I started doing a bunch of truffle dinners in Bel Air, Beverly Hills, and
Cool.
for all my clients. And one of those parties, I'm answering your bar rescue question. I'm sorry it was a little dragged out.
I love it.
Initially, this guy came up to me in the beginning of the dinner. He's like, "What's up, man? How are you?" And I'm like, "Good, good." And I was doing 5 courses, white truffles.
Wow.
I think I bought like $2,500 of truffles that got sent to me just for that particular party. I was really in the zone.
Yeah.
I kind of said, "Hey, man, listen, I got 5 courses to put out.
Yeah.
Let me catch up with you after dessert. Sound good?"
Yeah.
He goes, "Oh, no worries, man. All good." I was like,
cool.
"All right." Comes out to me. I'm Tim Duffy. I was like, "Hey, Tim, nice to meet you. I'm Nick Liberato." He's like, "So what's your deal, man? What's your gig? What do you
Yeah.
want to do?" "Oh, well, I'm working on getting my own brick and mortar, my own restaurant.
Yeah.
I've been running Caladelphia as my catering business, but, I really want to get my own show."
Yeah.
He's like, "Wow, really?" He's like, "Well, I'm actually the vice president of Spike TV." I was like, no, can I curse here? No,
Yeah, I think you can.
I said, "No shit." I was like, "No shit." And he's like, "Yeah, why don't you pop in my office this week? I'd love to hear your idea." I was like, "Cool." And I was pitching him a show at the time called Surf and Turf. And it was a traveling cooking show that went to surf locations throughout the world. I was
Ooh.
more or less trying to create my perfect job.
Yeah.
I butcher this and I make this at the beach. And he goes, yeah, we like to call those mop shows, most often pitched. And I was like, hey, man, nice to meet you. He goes, no, sit down. He goes, I really like you. I liked your energy. I like watching you cook. He goes, I got an idea. He goes, there's this new show on TV. It's called Bar Rescue. Have you ever heard of it? I said, I think I might have seen an advertisement. Is it some guy like screaming and stuff? He's like, yeah, that's it.
That's
It's
him.
only been on TV for a couple months.
Okay.
And I was like,
There's
wow, okay. He goes, would you be interested? I was like, yeah. He goes, you think you can handle that? He goes, you seem like a really nice guy. He goes, I need somebody that's got some chops and is going to lay into people a little bit. I go, well, hey, I'm not going to be an asshole to you the first time we meet here.
Yeah.
And he goes, all right, well then set the scene. It's a Saturday night. I was like, all right, you're my expo, you're this. And I went through it and he goes, all right, great. He goes, someone's going to be reaching out to you. I end up doing some audition online,
Sure.
interview. And within a week, I was flying out to Las Vegas for my first episode. I met John, super intimidating. First time I met him.
What is he, like 6'8" or something?
He's a big guy.
He appears tall.
It's just, he's been in the industry for a long time.
Yeah.
He opened up Pulsations around here, the Rainforest Cafe.
Oh, really?
He's actually
at
done
the mall. That was at the Oxford Valley Mall.
Totally,
right?
yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Puts together, he's done more than I think a lot of people know. He's
Yeah.
been around for a while.
Okay.
And accomplished a lot. So, I looked up to John a lot. Gave me a great opportunity. Shot roughly, 18 episodes, between the course of 2012 and 2016.
Yeah.
And traveled all around the country, made some great relationships with the film crew and
Yeah.
all the other experts, cocktails and other chefs, and got me this exposure. One day, I was coming through the Kansas City airport. And I remember
Okay.
I had a few people go, Chef Nick from Bar Rescue, and I remember it was the first time I had been noticed in public.
You're like, ooh, this feels good.
I was like, whoa! I was completely caught off guard.
Yeah. What was that like? I mean, what did you feel?
It was overwhelming. It was flattering, and it was like, I think I got to a point where I was like, wow, I'm starting to get some results here of kind of what I'm looking for, kind of what I want to accomplish. It was
That's crazy.
It was a lot, and then immediately, with social media, kind of being online with that, and my parents were super stoked, my friends, and it's getting recognized.
Sure.
I was feeling like a lot of my hard work was kind of starting to pay off.
Starting to pay off.
Because the things I had manifested. I had this beautiful, amazing lifestyle in California.
Yeah.
I was surfing every morning. I was doing parties for all the politicians, Schwarzenegger, everybody.
It's crazy.
I was taking trips whenever I wanted, surfing, and I mean, it was, and I was working on TV, and I was doing very well.
Yeah, I know, Nick, that I know you're back here now, and I really never thought you would ever come back. Seeing the success that you had out there. I know you turned a restaurant sort of upside down. Maybe you got that idea from Bar Rescue or whatever, but you started flipping some restaurant on the beach, right? The Whaler or something.
Exactly. Yeah. So in 2014,
Yeah.
I had been about 2 years into Bar Rescue.
Okay.
And I was running Philadelphia. And someone had reached out to me about meeting them at a dive bar on the beach in Venice Beach. And I had gone down and I sat down with these guys, and they had just acquired the Venice Whaler.
Yeah.
Which, if you're a Venice local, during that time, the downstairs bar smelled like piss.
Yeah.
The place was not being run well. It was a dive.
Yeah.
The food was all bought, pre-made stuff from Cisco. It was just canned, processed, stuff.
Yeah.
And there was just some not good things going on there. So I looked at it and I was just like, you know what? In my mind, I'm like, this is it. This place is right on the beach in Venice Beach.
Yeah.
I have an opportunity right now to turn this place around. I can change the brand. I can change the menu, the vibe. Everything that's going on here, I'm going to change.
Yeah.
Of course, with the help of my team, and change the whole culture here. So little by little, and it was right where my Bella was born, my first daughter. And on top of opening up a new restaurant and taking that on, my daughter actually got really sick. We almost lost her.
Oh my gosh.
And when she was 7 weeks old, she got rotavirus, and I was living in the hospital with my wife for a month and a half. And I was
I'm sorry to
literally
hear that.
opening up a restaurant, sleeping on a cot,
Yeah.
and going back and forth and putting on a smile on my face when I would get to the restaurant, because I was supporting the whole family. I had to,
Yeah.
I couldn't not show up
Yeah.
or just be an excuse. But I got through it. Bella's doing amazing. She's 8 years
Awesome.
old,
That's
thriving
amazing.
now. And but again, there's things that are thrown your way. You don't expect it, and you have to overcome those things rather than let everything come down on you and break you down.
Yeah.
You have to use those moments to make yourself stronger and understand how to multitask and maintain these different things in order to not let your life fall apart. You know?
I feel like one of the things that I think I read or I heard or I wrote it down, or maybe even said it earlier, I forget, but this kind of led into your next project. I'm sure there's tons of projects along the way, but like Restaurants on the Edge on Netflix, you tried to find places that had something like terrific views but horrible vibes or something like that?
Yeah. So what had happened was, I had started writing ideas for shows when I was younger, in 2004, and continued that all through those years. And we're in 2014, I started. I took over the Venice Whaler, and that was the proving grounds.
Yeah.
Within the first year and a half, when I took that place over, it was doing $300,000 in food sales and about $2 million in $3 million in alcohol sales.
Okay.
It was $2 million in alcohol sales and $300,000 in food sales.
Okay.
Within my first year and a half, I took it to $4 million in food sales. We made it like an $8 million business within the first
insane.
year and a half to 2 years, and it was all just creating the right vibe with the right, clothing and the cool menu and me being part of it and getting the community engaged and charities and the beach, and it just became this really special, amazing time, because this part of Venice was not such a nice part of Venice.
Yeah,
I'm talking very hard, homeless, hard part of town, but the Venetians, the true like Californians in that area are just amazing people, but I hate the word gentrification, but there was a part of that area that had just been uplifted in a number of different ways. But I looked at that model, and then we also did that across the street at another place, as well as our other spot in Santa Monica. That was called Mackay.
Okay.
And then we had opened up the Pure House across the street, which used to be this place called the Terrace.
All right.
That a number of crazy things had happened in there before. I'd rather not say on the podcast.
That's fine. That's probably for the better, I guess.
Yes. And but yes, I started looking at the bar rescue model.
Yeah.
And all the success that team had on remodeling these underperforming bars within the United States, and not necessarily uplifting them in the most positive way, because there was a lot of screaming and hollering and that kind of stuff. But I was like, look, check this out. This place is a tourist trap. So is that place that I took over.
Yeah.
And we're uplifting them in a positive way for the betterment of the community, for the brand, creating jobs. But more than anything, we took a really not attractive place and made it look beautiful.
Yeah.
And when people eat with their eyes first, and when you can,
What does that mean?
it means when you like when you walked into my deli today,
Yeah.
you could see the time and effort and passion that I
Sure.
put into every little corner of that place.
Yes.
So you want to feel comfortable in your space in order to spend
Okay.
time there. I want someone to be able to come into one of my establishments and be able to breathe easy and want to
Yeah.
spend some time there and
That's awesome.
and bring their guests there and enjoy the food and talk with the team and take pictures and really enjoy their time there. Time is the one thing in life that money will never buy. So wherever you spend it and however you do it, it's very important that you do it somewhere,
That you enjoy.
So, but I'm also looking at these places, and I'm looking at it, it's like we're selling real estate here.
Yeah.
It's like how many places have you sat at where you've had a beautiful view but really shitty foods?
There's been quite a few, for sure. So that
there was
the
a
thing.
couple that had come in, and they had sent their pizza back. And I was like, and the server had come over to me, and I was like, you know what? I'll talk to them. I went out in the dining room, I started talking with these folks, and they had worked in scripted TV.
Okay.
I had found out later, but I ended up becoming friends with them.
Cool.
talking to them. And then I saw the one gentleman pull up to my takeaway area. I had a little takeaway window, and he goes, I went out and say hi to him. And I said, hey, would you mind checking out a little idea I've got for a show? You know, it's called, you know, Chef for Sure. And, you know, it's been an evolution of shows that I've been like creating, you know, kind of what I'm doing down here at the beach. I'm taking over these underperforming restaurants that have great views and uplifting them in a positive way. And he's like, yeah, he's like, you know, I work in scripted TV, but I'll check it out. And then he had a number of connections and brought someone in from Toronto to come in, hear me out on the whole pitch and kind of what's going on down there. And really liked the idea. And that turned out to be our production company.
That's awesome.
And one thing led to another. And we started building the idea a little bit more and more. And had started getting some feedback from the networks of like, it's going to be tough for you to carry the show by yourself. You're also in a whole other bracket of just being a chef now. You're more of a restaurateur.
Yeah.
So look at it as like the model of Queer Eye for the Straight Guy, where there's multiple people. You might love this one, but hate that one.
Sure.
And then, you know, I wanted it to be cool and shot like almost like a Parts Unknown or, you know, like a Bourdain show where it's shot beautifully, like the choreography, you know, just like cinematography is just amazing. And I remember someone had said, there's a guest downstairs that wants to talk to you. And this was June of 2018.
Okay.
And I had already been planning to move back east with my wife and kids.
And downstairs, meaning you were like at the Whaler?
I was in the downstairs bar
of
the Whaler. And the Whaler's been around since 1944.
Yeah.
And that downstairs bar was the original area, which used to be called the Crab Shell.
Okay.
Where all the rockers would come to. The Beatles.
Really?
The Stones.
So it has this rich history of...
Oh, my God. If those walls could talk. And I've talked to some locals that like had some experiences there. Yeah. I heard some wild stories.
Sure.
But, yeah. And I had already moved my wife and kids to the East Coast. My wife was pregnant with our third girl.
Okay.
And I was set to be moving cross country that September.
Okay.
Well, that didn't exactly happen because all of a sudden we ended up, those two people were downstairs bar with 2 bottles of Dom Perignon and some champagne glasses and said, the show just got greenlit. And I remember just like breaking down crying.
Oh my God.
It was like the weight of everything that I had been striving for years and years and years. Like I wasn't leaving LA until I accomplished that, but I had a part of me that felt like I was almost going to. Yeah. And if timing isn't everything, and if something doesn't happen for a reason, so that happened, and immediately my life changed where it was like, it altered that next year and a half where I talked to my wife and I was like, well, listen, I'm going to be traveling the world for the next 11 months and I'm not going to be able to move home for the next year and a half.
How does that go?
My wife is going straight to heaven. Let's just put it that way. She is a saint. Yes, she has supported me in everything that I've ever done. And I think when I got that show, it was just as good as her getting her own show as well, because she accomplished that just as much as I did, because I would have never been able to do it without her support and her watching the kids and just holding down the fort and keeping the family whole while I was traveling around to events all around the world and doing all the other things I had done previously.
Yeah. I mean, think of the pride that, well, I know the pride that she has. Like, just thinking of it, like, she is part of all of your endeavors. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like, she may not be the face of it, but I know that if I had something like that, my wife is very similar, and like, she would have so much pride. I can only imagine the pride that your family has from what, just seeing your achievements. It's really cool.
They know that listen, not every LA story has a happy ending. No. You know, a lot of people go to Los Angeles an angel and come back a lost one.
Yeah, is that what they say?
That's what they say. Yeah. And, but with that said, I stuck it out with the restaurants that much longer. Yeah. I was bi-coastal on top of shooting the show. So I was living in both California and here. And wherever else you had to go. And wherever else I was living out of my bag. So I was a full-on gypsy, going from here to there, bouncing some other countries in between just to... Yeah, because I was there. And, you know, my dreams came true.
Yeah,
I reached doing something that I had never done before, and I'd never been. I know this sounds crazy, but it was the first time. It was the first time I was really, really proud of myself.
Wow.
And I know that sounds maybe awful in some ways, but I think it just kind of sums up how hard I pushed myself.
Yeah.
For the level of accomplishment of where I needed to reach in certain points in different parts of my life. That was an enormous one for me, where I knew I had brought something to the table. Other people had collaborated in order to make it happen. I was an executive producer, host, traveling the world, shooting a show, and I was going right back to my little $630 a month apartment that I moved in when I first moved to LA, watching Bourdain on a little TV and just going, I want to be that guy.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, not to say I became him at all by any means, because we're different individuals, but I was inspired by him and many others.
Yeah.
So many different people all rolled up into one that helped me accomplish, that part of my life.
It's so cool. I think we talked today about a lot about your history, but I think it's so important for people to hear that and to find out what the secret sauce was for you that made Nick Liberato or Chef Nick. I just, I'll see you on Instagram or on TV or whatever it is. And I'm like, he probably was always like that or something. But
no.
You don't hear the stories of the chefs that were, maybe jacking you up in the, threatening you in the kitchen and old school stuff like that, and what you had to go through along the way. And it really is just man, it's really cool. And there's no one else that has more pride than you, because you did those things. You sacrificed the sleeping in the cars, the traveling around, taking chances. And Nick, one thing that I noticed that I wanted to mention before I forget, because I forget a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
You always are willing to throw out an idea. I'm trying to do this show. I have this idea. What do you think? Or, hey, I think that
I'm about to pitch 2 new concepts. I am.
I bet you are.
And I've been working on them for the past 6 months, and I'm getting ready to go out and pitch these right now.
And you know what's crazy about that? You were pitching them when you probably didn't have as much confidence, and you somehow made them work. Now you probably have a lot more confidence. But I guess the thing that I'm trying to say, not just about you, but the advice that we could learn from you is that shoot your shot. Take a chance. So many people I didn't want to say that. I didn't want to embarrass me. I didn't want to. No, try it.
Yeah.
Ask somebody tell them what you're passionate about. And if they feel your energy, bam, so many people felt yours, man.
Some people want to stay in one place.
Yeah.
And I've got all kinds of friends, some that have no passports and are content with that and always stayed in their hometown. You know what? I respect them for that. And I'm a little envious of it too, because I've lived a pretty wild life on a lot of the things that I've done. But get out there. Take a chance. Don't be scared.
Yeah.
Don't get caught up in what you see on TV or how you're perceiving something to be or what someone else is telling you. All that's doing is holding you back. You only have so many chances in life to take a chance, to take a risk, because everyone's afraid of failing.
Yeah. I know.
And that's the only way to succeed. And that's what people don't understand. You need to fail in order to succeed. You need to take a chance. You need to take a risk. You don't win big unless you gamble big, kind of thing. But I like to say that in a little bit better way of you need to take chances. You need to take risks. You need to believe in yourself. You need to understand failure, and you need to be okay with it.
Yeah.
And you need to be able to work past it and not give up right after it.
Yeah. I mean, how many failures did you have? I mean,
I couldn't even tell you.
It's crazy.
It's many.
Yeah.
I didn't make big mistakes. I didn't do stupid stuff to get myself in major trouble or anything like that. I always walked a pretty clear line. I was surrounded by a lot of drugs and alcohol in the business.
Yeah, sure.
And there was a lot. I was never the chef that would drink ever on the line. I was very respectful to the people I worked with, is more to myself, because I was so committed of what I needed to learn. And after I go out for a beer but I wouldn't be out late because I had to wake up, and I was still giving surf lessons, and I still had to do this and I still had to do that.
Yeah.
But there's a lot that I think I could have gotten certainly that much more tied up into, but I kept a clear head, and I stayed on a pretty clear course of what I wanted and what I needed to do to accomplish it.
So you have, okay, so just to update everybody, we went through a little bit of your history, and what an amazing story. Just such a cool story in every way imaginable. But now I'm sitting at your newly opened delicatessen that is in Stockton, New Jersey, which is in a place. It's funny because you probably hear some of the music in the background and all kinds of stuff going on. I think I was here about a year ago with Bobby, my wife, my kids, Bobby's kid, his wife. We rode bikes here.
Oh, cool.
And
was it before we were open? But
there was something else in this building, like other things, like lots of other things.
Yeah,
like
totally.
Back kind of where that guy is. So what is this place, and how did this place? Just give people a rundown on what this is all about. It's pretty cool.
So initially, coming back here from California, I was opening up. I had wanted to open up a totally different concept, and this is a great story. When I moved back east, it was. I remember signing my contracts at my business and settling up, and everybody knew that I was leaving California.
Yeah.
February. My show went live. Restaurants on the Edge went live February 28th, 2020.
Okay.
I'd signed those at lunch that day.
I know what that means.
Well, there was little rumbles of the pandemic, but I remember my business partner going, this thing will pass just like anything else. And, we're kind of going about our day. I had a big celebration that night. And I was in California roughly until the 12th, March 12th, 2020. So I remember I went to Mammoth. I went snowboarding. Surfed in Central California, went up to Ojai to see a friend, and March 12th, 2020, I was in Venice saying bye to a couple really good friends.
Yeah.
That I could already feel, should you even be in my house right now, kind of feeling. And I'm just like, I can't believe I'm moving back east right now during this.
Yeah.
And the craziest thing, my wife will back me up on this, I always had premonition at some point when I was leaving California that something would be like falling out. Like, was it a huge earthquake that hit or something happened? But little did I know, I'm driving through the Inland Empire, looking through my rear view mirror, kind of taking that last view of Los Angeles going, what is happening right now?
Oh my God.
And I showed up in Phoenix and I saw my buddy Gus, and he's like, you're good, right? I'm like, yeah, man, I'm not sick. I'm good, man. Yeah. All right. I stayed with him one night. The next night I drove up, saw my friend Sasa in Crested Butte. Stayed 2 days. My second day, the mountain got shut down halfway through the day, and I was like, "Oh my God, what is going on? This is real. This is real.
Yeah.
This is really happening." I drove to Denver that next day, and I was with a buddy. He had no problem there. And then my friends in Kansas City were like, "You can't stay at our house. My wife won't let me stay here. My wife won't even let you sleep at the garage."
Oh my gosh.
I'm like, "Oh my God!" So I called a chef friend of mine. He let me stay in his like art loft and. And I literally drove, and I was talking to my business partner at the time who opened, he's the owner with me here at the Borscht Belt.
Okay.
He's like, Nick, I don't know if we're going to be able to do this big restaurant concept you want to do. I was like, what are you talking about? I was like driving through Kansas. I don't want to hear this.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
This is just
I'm driving cross country right now. I mean, my family's back east. Like, what are you talking about? He goes, we'll talk when you get home. Came back and with these big ideas of this like new American, very generous bow to like Sicily. That was the last international trip I had taken. California vibe on the inside.
Yeah.
Cool, like pre-prohibition type bar, chip block dice, freshly squeezed juices, very farm to table kind of vibe. Everything that I had been working hard for, that I wanted to put on the big show from my hometown to do the beautiful restaurant concept.
Yeah.
And here I am sitting, 30 feet away from each other at in the backyard of his house that he was building at the time. And we're talking about what the hell are we going to do? I was like, Mike, I've got to do something, man.
Yeah.
I've never been in a place where I didn't have a restaurant. He's like, well, all right, well, let's start talking about restaurants that are somewhat pandemic recession proof.
Yeah.
Because that's the way we got to be thinking right now.
Yeah.
He's a smart tech guy. He's accomplished a lot in his career, and I was like, well, what do you mean, like pizza and Chinese food? He's like, yeah, exactly. I was like, well, I opened a few pizza places in California, and I don't want to be another Italian guy opening up a pizza place. He's like, you ever make bagels? I was like, I made them once, twice. I wouldn't call myself a bagel maker by any means, and then we started talking about Jewish delis. And I was like, I love Jewish delis. Katz, Barney Greengrass, 2nd Avenue Deli, a couple places around here.
Yeah.
Love it. Love delis. Grew up in South Philly. You know, my grandparents take me to Famous. And he's like, well, let's go for a deli tour. Let's have a good time. And we went up there, you know, did a couple, you know, went up once, went up twice, gained a lot of weight. We had a great time eating together and understanding what, you know, we had a pretty good idea what we wanted to do. It was more or less a collaboration of a lot of these different places and trying to give the ultimate experience of a modern spin on a classic deli that's been elevated in both food and decor to be noticed and be comfortable with today's world and social media and the way things are perceived, as well as the older generation that would be pure nostalgia for.
Yeah.
And we found this space here, and it ended up working perfect. And you know, we've just celebrated our 1-year anniversary, which is a major accomplishment, and it has not been an easy year by any means.
No, I'm sure it hasn't been.
And you know, anyone that's listening to this, listen, everybody's got their own perceptions of social media. You know, I'm a pretty genuine, truthful person all the time, but you know, every business goes through its things. You know, every person goes through its stuff. You know, you can't read into everything that you see. You know, it's very, you know, every great thing that I've accomplished, I've never done it without some sort of failure or tough times to get there.
Yeah. And
this particular business has been anything but easy for my business partner and I to accomplish where we're at right now. And we couldn't be more proud. Like, I mean, in a pandemic, no less.
Yeah.
This place was very difficult to get together with the permitting and sourcing everything at the particular times, but it was a major accomplishment. And also coming in this first year with all the things that the hospitality business had to bob and weave around, you know, we've made it through and we've created a successful business in a very difficult time. And we've overcome a number of different things. And I couldn't be more proud of my business partner for supporting me and believing in me, and also being a guy that was essentially retired when I met him. Yeah. And
you brought him back.
I brought him back, but not only brought him back, but the guy works in here. Like, I mean, he doesn't need to come in here, but like, he loves it here.
It's amazing.
He's like a deli guy.
I can see why.
Yeah.
It's a neat little place.
And his name's Mike Delowitz. He's an amazing guy. And he's, you know, he believed in me. Yeah. And he believed in the concept. And we created something really, really beautiful here. Yeah. And I'm so proud of my team, the community, you know, everything that's really made this happen. And for me, it's a major accomplishment for me to be able to come home and be able to have something that people like yourself and everyone I went to high school and family and friends can experience. Because before that, it was all online and you were just seeing pictures of me in California. And how often were you making it out there?
Yeah, not that often.
My goal is to, you know, my goal with my team and I is to grow this brand and to expand the Borscht Belt. We're getting ready to open up our second location in Newtown in September.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah. We'll see if it's September, but it's definitely on. We're doing it. I was there with the architects yesterday, and things are on their way, and I'm really, really excited for it. And then, you know, I'm putting my all into this brand, you know, to grow and to scale it and just see where it goes, and to build the restaurant group to where we're able to have 618 Hospitality, which is the hospitality group, be the umbrella that sits over other concepts. Okay. And maybe some will be QSR models, more quick service restaurant. Okay. And I'll probably wait until mid-24, 25 until I do something a little bit more full scale, you know, full service restaurant with a bar. And maybe it'll happen sooner, but again, we're still in some, you know, Omicron and monkeypox.
I read something. There was like another variant the other day. I'm like, I just deleted it. I'm like, I don't want to read about that.
There'll never be another place that I don't open where I probably don't put a takeaway window in. Yeah. Or I don't have some sort of tech enablement to the business that's going to allow me to be able to continue my business as opposed to having my arms cut off, you know, in the middle of it, because so many thousands of businesses were closed over the past 2 years, and of restaurants, and it's horrible, you know, and and if you can make it through this time in the
Yeah.
hospitality business, you can make it through any time.
Yeah, that's a great way to
But
think.
you never take it for granted. The restaurant business is not something for anyone to just jump into, nor
Yeah.
the bar business as people watch Bar Rescue.
Yeah, I can do that.
you need to get on the ground, and you need to work, and you need to maybe lose someone else's money and
Great advice.
work under them and understand the things to do and not to do.
Yeah.
And until you get yourself to a good point of where you can wear a number of different hats,
Yeah.
where when you can walk into a business and look every team member in the eyes and understand what they're going through.
Yeah.
Until this day, I mean, I'm 44 and all that I've accomplished and things that I've done, I'm still back in the dish pit washing dishes, man. I'm still on my hands and knees up front cleaning
Yeah.
with the team. And you got to lead by example.
That's it,
Don't
man.
ever think that you make it somewhere to the point where, oh, well, I don't have to do that anymore.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what, you got another thing coming because you're going to set a really poor example of leadership if that's how you go about things.
Dude, you're great.
I just
so many different concepts. Like, did you ever hear Walt Disney that he used to do that? He used to take executives around Disney World, and he would pick up like trash and dropped ice cream cones off the ground and be like, "Excuse me, real quick," and he'd go over and scrape it up, and the people would be like, "What's he doing?" And then he wouldn't even mention it. That's you, man.
I did hear that's
you.
interesting. I did hear something about him recently that caught my ear.
Okay.
It was a number of lights. There were these red and white lights that were coming, and then when it came to the center,
Yeah.
there was like a white combo that didn't match up. There was a red one on this side and a white one on this side, and he got a painter to come in, and he wanted half the light bulb painted red, so because that was his attention to detail, and he strived for perfection to create the ultimate experience for his guests.
Yeah.
And if you can go about that in most businesses and put that integrity and that drive and that consistency and have clear line of communications and standard operating procedures in place and enabling your team
Yeah.
and not micromanaging people and letting people fall into their own
Yeah.
so they're not going crazy and they're able to be their own artist and they're able to be their own boss. I'm not about holding people's hands. I will always pull someone aside if I have an issue with someone because I'm not the person that belittles or demeans someone.
Yeah.
And even when I do have you on the side, I'll just speak very direct. You
Yeah.
know, how bad do you want this? Do you want me to work really hard with you? And how much do you want? And
Yeah.
I know pretty quickly if somebody's got what it takes or doesn't, or
Sure. Yeah.
Because that shows in someone's work ethic and what they're doing. So it's a it's a tough job, but I'm constantly looking for great people.
Yeah.
And I'm hiring right now. So if anyone is interested in working at the Borscht Belt in Stockton or at our new location in Newtown, definitely
Yeah.
let
What are you
me
looking
know.
for? I mean, what's the are you
Hiring
looking
all positions.
Okay.
Yep, hiring all positions. Cooks, front of the house, back of the house. I don't care if you have restaurant experience or not. I'm looking for people that are eager to learn.
Awesome.
They're kind of a yes chef type of person. And the last thing I ever want to hear in my business is that's not my job, because that's not somebody I want working for me.
Man.
I want people that are going to be able. It's like going into war every single day that you're doing this. That you have to help people out. If one station's going down, you drop everything you can to be able to pull that person through service.
Yeah.
And have a perfect understanding of what we need to do in order to succeed, to create the best guest experience.
Yeah.
And and then we'll go over the things that we didn't do right, and we'll go over the things that we did great, and then we'll talk about how we can be better, and then we'll talk, and then we start our next day.
Yeah.
And if you're not driven, if you're not challenged, if you're not inspired, you're probably in the wrong place.
Yeah. And that's okay.
And that's
right?
that's okay.
sometimes.
The search is on.
Yeah.
But don't give up. Keep it going.
Yeah.
Don't stay in one place.
Yeah. Man, I mean, what an honor it would be to work for someone like you that has this worldly experience. You've had great mentors, horrible mentors, everything in between. You've seen successes. You've had successes. You've had countless failures. And you're just such a genuine guy. You've always been. What an honor it would be to work for someone like you. So, hey, if you're out there and you need a job,
Yeah.
I did want to say, there's something that you fed me today that I have to express my interest in eating again sometime. So I'm going to be bringing my family back here real soon.
Definitely bring them in.
But what the heck was that potato thing that you gave me with applesauce called? Can you tell me about that? Because if you only come up here and get that, just come up here and get that within the week, because that was unreal.
I was walking through the back kitchen, and there was
probably some scraps he had off, but it was everything's so good here.
There was a whole tray of fresh latkes being made, and we had fresh applesauce. You eat it with either applesauce or sour cream, but you had a latke that came right out of right off the out of the fryer.
Well, I was trying to set up the equipment, and like we're getting set up here, and Nick, he's just such an awesome host, has just dropped this thing in front of me. I'm like,
and then
I'll
walk
take
away.
it. He walks away. And I have like all this video equipment and audio equipment to set up, and I start eating that, and then I'm not even paying attention to the audio equipment anymore, and I'm just indulged in this. But thank you for that. The pastrami sandwich, that thing was amazing. So those are
good.
Just come up to Stockton and check out this place out for now until the Newtown branch opens. Nick, I know we've been on here a while. I want to get out of here soon. There's two last things that I wanted to mention, and we'll wrap it up.
Yeah, no worries.
There's kind of you don't have to talk about this if you don't want to, but, and I'm going to be honest when I say this, there's sort of like a sensitive topic that you might not want to chat about, but something that I've always sort of like connected with you. And when I was in high school, one of your good friends, Josh Reese, was in my homeroom, and he was a kid that sat next to me. I remember senior year, because his last name was Reese and my last name Shields, whatever. But I always looked at him as someone who was like an extrovert, and like I told you, I was like an introvert and couldn't really like get on his level. And like I would see you guys, and man, it must be cool. They're having so much fun. Tragically, he passed away on 9/11.
Yeah.
And I know you guys were so close. And one thing that I always like, I don't know, man, I feel like even though I wasn't close with either of you, I always feel like that sense of you like doing the sort of remembrance thing every year on Facebook. I just think about the both of you, and it brings me back, and it like, I don't know. I don't even know if you want to mention that, or I know that might be too personal, but I just wanted to say that like, I know you guys were friends, and I know if he was around now, like how proud he would be as a friend to you, man. And like, I get emotional even talking about it. I can't even imagine how you feel about it when you think about it. But man, what a great, it's such a sad thing.
Josh and I were great friends since first grade.
Yeah.
He busted off to a private school for a little while. Our parents were always friends, through the neighborhood, and we reconnected like 8th grade again, and we're like inseparable. He really introduced me to the Grateful Dead, him and his older brother, his younger brothers, his sister. I just went to her wedding. I've been a big part of their family since Josh passed.
Yeah.
I'm very close with John, Jordan, and Adam, and Jenny, and Gary, and Judy, the parents. But it was a very tragic loss. That was a tough thing to process when it happened. And it was a big part of me. I think that was also another thing for me to keep pushing harder for the life that he didn't have. Yeah. There's a part of me that thinks about him all the time, how old he would have been, what kind of life he would have had. Talk about a go-getter.
Yeah.
I mean, that kid was he was focused on money, loved money. Yeah. Always, if an ice cream cost $2, he was making sure he's whipping out like $300 to make sure he saw it. And we would go down Atlantic City and but laugh. I mean, we had just a great time. Yeah. We, we certainly expanded our minds together. Yeah, for sure. We had an amazing time together, a brotherhood between him and myself and a couple other guys, and there's not a day that passes by where I don't think about him. Yeah. And there will never be a day in my life where I wouldn't do anything for anybody in his family. Yeah. And I tell my daughters about him. I have talked about him a number of times. I've lost a lot of friends, unfortunately. You and I, we were just talking about that before. We've lost a lot of people in our high school, and lost a lot of people in California, and family members, and it's just you realize how precious life is. I think there were certain times in my life I took it for granted or didn't appreciate everything despite the optics. Yeah. But having kids and working really hard and doing a lot of things, I mean, you can be here today and gone tomorrow.
Yeah.
So it's just like, I really try to not ever keep grudges with people. You never know when you're going to be able to talk to that person again.
Yeah.
And that's why, and also shooting Restaurants on the Edge is a major goal of mine, to where a big part of this show was making sure that we spread as much positivity and made as much positive change as we possibly could around the world. And I think just the talk on the subject of just where we're at in life right now, with a lot of divide, and despite anyone's beliefs and political directions and things like that, in my mind as a business owner and stuff, like I truly like to feel that we're in the midst of somewhat of a renaissance. I know when the pandemic hit in 1918 that the Roaring Twenties didn't start in 1920; they started in 1924. So I think it's really important for everybody to get their businesses established. Yeah. To just quit the BS, understand how to come together, and that we can make this a better place. Despite everyone's differences and directions, like there is a renaissance. I would like to think that's coming, where everyone's going to be able to come together. Businesses will be thriving, and because there's just too much divide and too much negativity out there. Yeah. And especially with the war now and things like that. And I'm not going to get into wherever I'm at with all that, but my job's to create the best experiences I can for people. And I think a restaurant or a brasserie or anywhere you go to kind of clear your mind and have some great food and kind of escape, those are the type of environments I like to create. Yeah. So,
you've done that here, man. You've done such a great job. I mean, I can't believe that you've, like you said before, time is the one thing that you just can't, get back. And you've spent a lot of time with me today. I really appreciate that. I think people that will listen to this will really dig hearing some of your leadership styles and the way that you... The path that you've taken, man. Yeah. It's really cool. I mean, I didn't know any of this, and that's why I didn't ask any of the questions. I have so many questions, and it doesn't matter.
Don't take the easy path.
Don't take the easy path. I could have summed it up. But when I think of you now, I think forever I'm going to think of the Wolfpack. Yeah. And I see you as the leader in the back, and I see, the people that you really trust up front, and then you're always sort of working with those in the middle. Yeah. And I think that's such a cool metaphor that you brought up before. I know you didn't make it up. We both saw it on some picture.
I did not make it up. I did not claim it, but I did get inspired by it. But more than anything, I'm all about building leadership right now, because I understand the struggle of what it takes to accomplish things in life. And I also know how it feels to be lost. Yeah. And I know, I know the recipe to be successful. I like to think, or at least to be happy, to be comfortable, and to put yourself on a path of adventure, and
I love it.
and to get lost, man. Yeah. Take a trip somewhere. Go alone if you have to. Don't wait for your friends, and go get lost. Don't have an agenda. Just rent a car, or don't.
I love this.
And just go. You'll never have that opportunity any other point in your life. You're going to wake up, and you're going to be 44, and you're going to have...
That's us, man.
I know it is. But you're going to wake up, and life's going to pass you by. And not to say that, hey, like you said, you're not a surfer. You can still start surfing right now.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Seize the day. Carpe diem. Get after it. Don't procrastinate. Stop making excuses. Just go for it. Got nothing to lose.
I love it, man.
Nothing.
I love your energy. I love your positivity. I love everything you've done since the beginning of time. There's never been a time in my life, even though I didn't really know you well, that I ever said, that guy's an asshole or that guy's a jerk. Even though I didn't know you, I was like, man, that guy's a cool guy, or
I think
whatever.
That's why I was prom king in high school.
Were you really? See, I didn't even know that.
I was prom king, yeah. Because I was nice. Oh, thanks, man. Yeah. I was just nice to everybody. Yeah. Man, and
you still are.
I always am. But you just accept everyone. Let everybody in. Yeah. You never know what path that person's going to take you down, what you're going to learn, or what kind of relationship you could build for the rest of your life. Just look past what somebody looks like or how you perceive them or whatever, and just take a chance.
Take a chance. And if you're in New Hope, take a chance and get on the canal and walk a few miles down the road on the canal path and end up at the Borscht Belt, which is a tremendous restaurant that I really enjoyed myself. today, some great food. Nick, I do want to thank you for taking the time to be on this show, and trust me, a lot of people will learn from you today.
I hope so.
And I also wanted to say, if you know, take some time, and if you think of other people in your life that have been great leaders or mentors for you, if you ever want to send them out to me, I love to travel to interview. I do online interviews and stuff, so keep that in mind too.
Yeah.
So
Maybe I'll introduce you to David Myers.
I would be honored.
Okay.
That would be really
I think
cool.
he'd be a good one for you.
You think so?
I know so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Nick, again, thank you so much. It's been a freaking honor.
Of course,
And,
brother.
I'm
It's great to see you.
taking that sandwich with me. I'm going to finish that in the
good.
ride home.
Good, man.
So we'll get it. If we can get a couple pictures, we'll get out of here. But thanks for listening to The Leader Next Door with Nick Liberato. You can catch him. You want to do a quick PR thing where we can find you?
Yeah,
It's 'cause
sure.
There's too many to list. I'll forget one.
Yes, on Facebook, Nick Liberato or Chef Nick Liberato. On Twitter, at Philadelphia. And on Instagram, at Chef Nicky.
Okay, cool. All right, Nick, thanks a lot. And we'll see you guys next time on The Leader Next Door.